Hello InfoTech students, this is Mrs. Pancoke. I'm going to be going over lesson 4 with you, using basic formulas. So our skills today are understanding and displaying formulas, using cell references in formulas, and using external cell references. So lesson 4 starts on page 49. The step-by-step starts on page 50. Step number 1. It says to open up a blank Excel workbook, and we're going to click in cell A1 and we're going to type a formula. So there are a number of different ways to type in the formulas, but usually they always start with the equal sign. And we're going to go ahead and type in the 7 plus 8 times 3 divided by 2 minus 4. Now, I like to use my keypad, which is the numbers and the symbols, over to the right-hand side. I find it a little bit easier than using the shift key and using the numbers above my keyboard keys. Once you're done typing it in, you can see that in A1 we have the formula. We also can see it in our formula bar. It says to go ahead and press enter. When I do that, it tells me the result of that equation or formula. Step number 3 says to click in cell A1 and notice that the result of the formula in the cell is in the cell, but the formula itself appears in the formula bar. So I have my result, and then I have my formula bar that has the actual equation. We're going to go ahead and press enter again. Step 5 and step 6 says on the formula tab, we're going to click on formulas tab. In the auditing group, formula auditing, we're going to click on show formulas. When we click on that, the formula displays inside our worksheet. It says to double click cell A1. The formula appears now in both the active cell and the formula bar. Okay, we're going to go ahead and save this document as in our hopefully new folder. I'm going to go to lesson 3. Let's go back here to our folder. We're going to make a new folder and call it lesson 4. And I'm going to type in 04 formula practice solution and hit enter. So show formulas or remove the show formulas, you can see how that changes. I'm going to scroll down, and our textbook on page 50 talks about formula is an equation that performs calculations such as addition, subtraction, multiplication, and division on values in a worksheet. In Excel, a value can be a number, a cell address, a date, text, or Boolean data, but is usually a number or cell address in terms of formulas. Operands identify the values to be used in the calculation. An operand can be a constant value or a variable such as a cell reference, a range of cells, or another formula. A constant is a number or text value that is entered directly into a formula. A variable is a symbol or name that represents something else, which can be a cell address, a range of cells, and so on. Calculation operators, specifically the calculations to be formed, or specify the calculations to be formed. To allow Excel to distinguish formulas from data, all formulas always begin with the equal sign. And then on page 51, there's a table that shows, here I'll show this to you. there is a table that shows you the different operators and the different symbols that you use for these formulas. Just like in math, you also need to understand order of operations. Order of operations mean that if you're using more than one operator, Excel follows a specific order called order of operations to calculate the formula. Parentheses play an important role in controlling the order of operations. So it says we're going to still use the same worksheet, and we're going to click in cell A1 to make it active, and then we're going to click in the formula bar, and we're going to put a parentheses around 7 plus 8. Okay, and we're going to insert a parentheses around 3 divided by 2. Okay, so our formula should look something like what you see right here. We're going to press the enter key. I'm going to turn off my show formula, and you can notice that my result changed by adding those parentheses. It says to save your workbook as order of order of operations solution. Go ahead and save. And it says to close this file. So you can go to File, Close. It says leave Excel open though to use in the next window. So next it talks a little bit about nested parentheses. Excel performs calculations on formulas inside parentheses first. Parentheses inside of parentheses are called nested parentheses. Calculations are performed on formulas in the innermost set of parentheses first, and then from left to right if nested parentheses are at the same level. It also talks about cell references. So a cell reference identifies a cell's location in the worksheet based on its column, letter, and row number. Using a cell reference rather than data displayed in a cell gives you more flexibility in your worksheet. So instead of typing in numbers, you would type in the cell name that you are wanting to reference for your formula. Generally, when you're doing or working in Excel, this is the way you're going to enter in your formulas, using the cell reference rather than typing in the number. This is because many times in Excel, your numbers might change later. And if you use a cell reference, your result of your equation automatically updates by using a cell reference. It also talks about relative cell reference. It is one that adjusts the cell identifier automatically if you insert or delete columns or rows, or if you copy the formula to another cell. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and we're going to go to File, Open. My Open doesn't quite work when I'm recording, so I'm going to go into my folder right here. And I'm going to go to Infotech, my Excel folder, Data Files, Lesson 4, and I'm going to open up Budget Cell References. Alright, there we have it. I'm going to click Enable Edit. Okay. It says to click in cell B18, which is down here. It says to click in the formula bar, and we're going to replace the number 12,000 with B3. Okay, it says notice that B3 is highlighted and surrounded by a blue border while you're modifying the formula. It says to press enter. Okay. The formula in B18 now uses a cell reference called B3. So if I click back in it, you can see that up there. It says to copy cell B18 to cell B21. Okay, so I'm going to copy and I'm going to paste it. Okay, so when I copied and pasted it, the result changes to 400. Why, you might say? Because when we type in a cell reference, it automatically adjusts to the next column down for our formula. So step 5 says, double click in here, notice in the formula bar that the formula in B21 is now B6 instead of B3. But the formula you copied earlier was B3. That's because the original cell reference of B3 changed to cell B6 when you copied the formula down 3 cells. And cell B6 is blank. The cell reference is adjusted relative to its position in the worksheet. So when you use cell reference, Excel gets a little bit smart and knows that, you would probably rather be calculating B6 instead of B3 because you moved down 3 cells. Okay, so an alternative way to use cell reference is to click the cell being referenced while creating or modifying a formula. So with B21 still active, click in the formula bar. So we need to make sure it's active in cell B21. We're going to click in the cell or in the formula bar up here and click on or select B6. And then we're going to click in cell B3. Okay, so cell B3 becomes highlighted and is surrounded by a blue dashed border. And cell B3 appears in the formula bar rather than B6. Go ahead and press enter. Okay, so we're going to save this workbook in your Excel Lesson 4 folder called Lesson 4 Budget Cell References Solution. It says to pause and leave the workbook open to use in the next exercise. So let's go ahead and click in cell B18. We're still using the same worksheet. It says to click in the formula bar and insert $ around cell B3. So I'm going to type $, $. So it should say B $, or $B, $3. We're going to go ahead and press enter. Okay, the formula in cell B18 now uses an absolute cell reference to B3. We're going to copy cell B18. So I can hold down the control key and I can use this copy. We're going to copy B18 to cell B21. Okay. The result displayed is 1600, which matches B18. Next, we're going to copy B21 to C21. Okay, the displayed result is still 1600. Notice that in the formula bar, cells B21 and C21 still equal the same formula. regardless of where you copy the formula in the worksheet, the formula still references cell B3 because we put in those dollar signs. It says to save your workbook. Okay, so it says to click in cell B21. And we're going to click in the formula bar and we're going to delete the dollar sign before the 3 so that the formula looks like dollar sign B3, and we're going to press enter. Okay. The formula in the cell now uses a mixed cell reference. It says to copy the cell in B21 to C21. Sorry, actually we're going to copy cell B21 to C22. Okay. When you do that, the display result is 440, which is different from the result in B21. Okay, so I wasn't supposed to copy that one over, but it's supposed to be different because what happened was we're still referencing column B, but we moved down one to the renter's insurance, which is $40. So as you can see, it's referencing now B4 instead of B3 because we're using a mixed reference. Okay, so the dollar sign before B is still there, but the row number is relative. So it says to delete the contents of B21, C21, and C22. So I'm going to press the delete key to delete all three of those at the same time. And I'm going to click the save button on my quick access toolbar. So it says right here that a mixed cell reference is a cell reference that uses an absolute column or row reference, but not both. Okay. We're also going to be using external references, which refer to a cell or a range in a worksheet in another Excel workbook, or to a define name in another workbook. So this part I know was on our test last year, so this is going to be an important key, using an external reference. So we're going to click on the Summary Sheet tab, and we're going to click in cell D8, column D, row 8, which is right here. And what it says is you want to average payment for electricity to appear in this cell, similar to the content that appears in B20 in the expense details worksheet. However, your formula must reference the expense details worksheet to gather the data. So we're going to type in our equation here. So sum, okay, and then I'm going to type in the parentheses, comma, expense, space, details, comma, exclamation point, N8, that's the cell we're referencing on this other worksheet, parentheses, divided by 12. Press enter. Okay, and it worked. Now, the other thing that you could do for this is you could type in =sum, sum parentheses, and I could actually, instead of typing all this extra stuff, I could click on expense details, and then I could click on cell N8, which is right here. And then I could finish typing in the rest if I go back over here. Oh, okay, so it added that stuff in. Then all I needed to do was hit divided by 12. Okay, so you could do that either way. You could click to where you want to add it from the other worksheets, or you could type it in if you knew how to enter all that in. I actually believe it's easier to click. Okay, so this formula divides the value of cell N8 in our expense details worksheet. It sums it, and then it divides by 12. The result is 176 rounded due to cell formatting applied to the worksheet. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and save the workbook once again. And next we're going to open up a second workbook. So I usually go down here. I'm going to go to my data files, and I want to click on the 04 budget 2016. And I'm going to click enable editing, and it moves it again. There we go. Alright. So, it says that we are going to return to our other worksheet. So I'm going to go ahead and open this one back up. And it wants me to click in cell C3. Alright, C3 is right here. And we're going to go ahead and type this formula. So we're going to actually be referencing a whole nother workbook. So shift parentheses, and then square bracket, 04 budget 2016 dot XLSX square bracket summary B3. Okay, so what this means is it's going to reference this budget document that we have opened and the summary worksheet, cell B3. I'm going to go ahead and press enter, and it works. So if I go back over here to my other document, I'm referencing summary in the budget workbook, cell B3, which should be 13,200. So if I go back to this workbook, that's what it pulled in. So the formula links cell B3 on the summary worksheet in your workbook named 04 Budget 2016. It says to save the workbook and then close it. So we can save it and then close. Go to File, Close. And then it tells us to go ahead and close out of this one as well. File, Close. Leaving Excel open to use in the next exercise. So next we're going to be using named ranges. Now all of this stuff that we're doing today in this lesson I know is on our test. So this is very important that you understand cell references and using things like ranges. So we're going to go ahead and open up 04 budget ranges. So I'm going to use this to go to my folder. Data files, lesson 4, 04 budget ranges. Okay, it says to enable the content. Yes. Move it back over here as it moved. And if prompted, if you see another message box, click continue, click yes if prompted, and then we're going to click the expense details sheet tab. And we're going to select the range. Oh, we got to click enable. Click continue, click yes. It says that we need to select cell B3 through D14. B3 through D14. We're going to select this range. And we're going to click in the name box. And we're going to type in one word name for this list, such as Q1 expenses. Whenever you're typing a name, you cannot use spaces. It has to be no space. And I'm going to press enter to make sure that it gets added. Alright. The range name appears in the name box. Excel saves this name and uses it in any subsequent reference to this range. Alright, so next we are going to use an alternative way to name a range. So on step 5 of page 58, it says to select the range B16 through M16. And in the names group, so we need to be on the formulas, in the define names group, we're going to click on define name. Okay, the dialog box appears. And it says you can change the name if you like. For this exercise, we're going to leave the default name of utility subtotals, because what happens is Excel uses the row heading right here, utilities subtotals, for our name of our range. It says to open the scoop drop-down list, and your options for our workbook, expense details, in summary. The last two entries correspond to individual sheets in our workbook. So we have the whole workbook and then we have two sheets. It says leaving workbook selected, we're going to click close the drop-down list. Okay. It says that type the comments in the comments text box if you like. So if you have any comments, you can type them in the comments dialog box right here. It says to leave the cell address that appears in the refers to text box. This is the range that you selected. Notice that the sheet name is also included automatically. So expense details is already included, as well as our range. Okay, we're going to go ahead and click OK. The name utilities subtotals is saved for this range. Step 12 on page 59 says that a third way to name a range is to use the Create Names from Selection dialog box. So we're going to create from selection. So on step 12, we're going to use the Create Names from Selection dialog box. But first, we need to select N2, which is right here, through N14, right here. And on the Formulas tab, in the Define Names group, we're going to click the Create from Selection button. This dialog box appears. It says Excel determines that you want to use the column heading label as the named range. So create names from the value. We're going to go ahead and click OK. The range is saved with the name totals. So over here in our name box, we should have these 3 different named ranges. The next one that we just did was name total. It says to open the name box drop-down list, which I just did, and you should have 3 named ranges to select. It says that we're going to save this as, so we're going to go to Save As, Lesson 4, and I'm going to name this 04 Budget Ranges Solution. And we'll click Save. Okay, it says pause and leave the workbook open to use in the next exercise. So we just did this, but it talks about named ranges as one of the vocabulary terms. A named range is a group of cells that occasionally a single cell with a designated name. The most common reason to name a range is to refer to it in a formula and for functions. All right. Also talks about right here the scope of a name is the location in which Excel recognizes the name without qualification. Excel requires that a name must be unique with its scope, but you can use the same name in different scopes. All right. Oop. Let's go ahead and move this back over here. Okay, so we're going to use the worksheet that you modified in the previous exercise. So we're still using this document. And we're using the expense details sheet. It says to click in cell A21. And we're going to type first quarter expenses. And then press enter. And then it says that in B21, we're going to type the following: =, sum, parentheses. And then on the Formula tab, in the Define Names group, we're going to click Use in Formula, and we're going to choose Q1 expenses from the list. To close the formula, we're going to type the end parentheses to close the formula, and then we're going to press the Enter key. The amount of expenses for January through March appear in cell B21. Okay, so it added up that range of cells that we just named in the last exercise. It says to save the workbook, and then we're going to go ahead and close it. And we can close Excel. So go ahead and go on to the knowledge assessment for lesson 4 and do the 2 projects. Have a great day.